I'm Amir Adibi with the DBIP Group. We're intellectual property professionals helping you protect your most valuable assets. Today we're going to be talking about trademarks, trademark filings, and why you should be protecting your brand. Step one is to identify your mark. So typically this is relatively straightforward. If, for example, say you're selling clothing online, let's say you have a Shopify store, you might consider trademarking the name that you associate with your goods. So if you have a certain brand name that people see whenever they click on your Shopify link and are on your page, that would definitely be a candidate for a trademark. Those are called word marks, and those should absolutely be protected. Another thing that you might look for are, do you have certain logos or stylized designs? So let's say, for example, you have a name of your store. Let's say it's Amir's Shop. Amir's Shop by itself could be a possible word mark, but then you also might look and see, okay, well, I have Amir's Shop in a stylized way. Maybe the text is a certain style that I really like. And then maybe I have a neat logo, let's just say a wavy design. So you could actually also trademark that separately, and that's called a design mark. So any sort of stylized logo could be a separate trademark filing and a separate trademark application that turns into a separate registered trademark. So the first step that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to identify all the marks that you use in association with sales of goods or services. Really look through all your content in terms of point of sale, so at the point where customers are making a decision to buy, and ask yourself, what distinctive source identifiers do you have that consumers associate with your goods or products? And once you collect all those, then you have a solid foundation for looking at, okay, I have these particular marks and I might want to file on each of them. Let's move on to step two. You're going to look at the list that you have and confirm that you in fact can actually trademark them. And so one of the first steps in actually doing the trademark filing is doing a clearance search. So if you're going to be filing a trademark on your brand name, if in this case Amir's Shop, I would actually do a search for Amir's Shop, both in Google, just to see if maybe there's competitors out there that are using something similar, just so you're aware of it. And then I also would do a similar search on the trademark database. If you go to tsdr.uspto.gov, there's an option to search. There's also a global brand registry, another very, very useful database. The global brand registry database is a worldwide search. So again, step two, you're going to want to make sure that your mark is registrable and is sufficiently distinctive. Now, once you're confident that you know what marks you're interested in filing on, and then also know that they have a shot at actually being registrable because they're distinctive, the next thing that you're going to want to do is identify the classification for your mark. So the most common, most popular, probably most filed on mark is class 25 for clothing. Fortunately, the trademark office has what's called a trademark ID manual. If you go to that manual, it's effectively a database, and you can actually search for goods or services, and you'll see a whole slew of search results. And in those search results, you'll get a pretty good sense of what classification you can be in. So for example, let's say you didn't know that clothing was in class 25, you could do a search for, say, hats, and in the search results, you'll find hats and other headwear in class 25. So again, step three, figure out what classification you're going to need to file under. So remember that sometimes, depending on what goods or services you're selling, you might want to file under multiple classifications. Now, the thing to remember with that is that the more classifications you have, the better, because it increases your brand protection. Now, the one thing though is that the more classes you have, the higher the fees. So keep that in mind. If you're filing under 4 classes, then the fees are going to be at least $1,000 depending on the application type, which I'll get into in a minute. Now, the next step, you're going to have to decide whether or not you can use the reduced fee application. The nice thing about using the reduced fee application is that the fees are $100 cheaper than the regular standard TS application. What are the drawbacks with the reduced fee application? Well, the drawbacks are you are stuck with the categories and descriptions that are in the trademark ID manual. So if for whatever reason you maybe provide a service that's very unique and different and is not in the trademark ID manual, well, in that particular case, you're not going to be able to file the reduced fee application, and you'll have to file the standard application. Not necessarily a problem, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the applied for goods and services actually cover what you are doing. Now, at the next stage, depending on the type of application you have, if you're already using your mark in commerce, you're going to have to also do what's called prepare specimens. And to put it really simply, specimen is proof that you're actually using your mark in commerce. So the simplest example would be a label on the clothing. So for example, the tag on the clothing having your brand. So if it's Amir's shop, I would want a label, a tag on the clothing, say on the neckline, and then on it, maybe right above the size, it could say Amir's shop. That would be a perfect specimen. You could actually just take a picture of the actual clothing item as long as the tag on the neckline is shown very clearly. Screenshots of websites are also acceptable specimens as long as they show the mark used in connection with the goods at the point of sale. So typically what this means is you want a screenshot that shows the item, the mark, and an add to cart button or buy now button. Now, fortunately, the USPTO has a lot of resources on actually generating specimens and making sure that they conform with the rules required so that there's no issues with the specimen down the line. Now, assuming your trademark is not being used in commerce, you would not be filing specimens. Instead, you'd file what's called a Section 1B application or intent to use. The Section 1B application allows you to actually secure the mark before you even start using the mark in commerce. That way, you know that once it's actually approved, you can double down and go all in the marketing, knowing that you already have the mark approved. Now, after you have the specimen, you know the application type, you're ready to actually go in and actually file the application. At the end of this process, you're going to get an application filing receipt that's going to have a serial number. That serial number will be tied to your application throughout the entire examination process. This video tries to explain the high-level filing process and what you need to do, what steps are involved in preparing a trademark application, and also helps you identify what marks you may need to file on. Remember, this is not legal advice. I strongly encourage you to seek the help of independent trademark counsel.